years. And so I started showing LA and everything was going really great. And got married. And I started, after I graduated grad school, I started as a teacher. I started teaching kindergarten through 8th grade. And on the side, I would do my gallery work. And it was a really great combination of kind of a day job and my love of drawing and kind of like having both things, and it was really great. And as life got, busier and crazier, and the mortgage got bigger, in 2009, I had my daughter, and it was the same time, and I don't know, I'm pretty sure it felt everywhere, kind of the crash in the market in 2008 hit. So it was kind of a big eye-opener what happens when people are not investing in art, especially new art, with new young artists. And I decided between 2008 and 2009, after my daughter was born, that I would no longer be making art. And it was a really interesting choice. It wasn't like I just woke up one day and said, I'm not going to be an artist anymore. I just thought I had a good run. I was young, I did some gallery work. This is great. I always loved doing art, but I'm going to be a mom, and I'm going to be a teacher, and that's going to be my life, and that's fulfilling enough in itself. So as time went on, and the next year passed of not really doing art, I was okay. And then another year passed, and I was like, oh, this is really bad. My life kind of went from. I think what it's about is the context and what I used to do before I had my daughter. I drew because I could, because it was fun, because I loved doing it, and it was something I had time for. When that time changed, it no longer became a luxury, and I just so easily kind of just walked away from it, and I didn't realize what I was walking away from until about a year after. And I realized I walked away from like the meaning of my life. It was something I identified with, and I so easily walked away from it. And then this was the point in my life where I realized I can't just go back to it. How do I do that? How do I find time to be a mom and a teacher and then draw again? I didn't have room for it anymore. And so I thought I'd live with that the rest of my life. And I said, well, eventually I'll get back into it. And I started to become kind of an angry person, which wasn't the type of person I wanted to be, and wasn't the mom that I wanted to be. And I kind of had a realization that I looked at this totally wrong, and this thing, I took it for granted. I took making art for granted. I took it something I'll always be able to do, and when I wasn't able to do it, I feel like I took the wrong path. So I literally just kind of woke up that weekend and I said, I have to start drawing again. And this was about the same time that a good friend of mine told me about this art contest in Michigan. And I said, don't even talk to me about art contests in Michigan. Like, I can't even brush my teeth in time to get to school in the morning. And she was like, no, seriously, I'm going to go in 2012. And I said, well, that's a long time away. And she goes, that's why I'm telling you about it now. She's like, let's do something. I'm going to put a piece in, you put a piece in. And she was also a new mom too, and kind of was in a similar situation. And I said, well, whatever, no, I can't do it. Literally 2 weeks later, I called her, I said, I'm doing it. I gotta do something, because my poor husband, my poor daughter, I'm just going nuts. I have to do it. So I started this elephants piece, and it's the first piece that I did after my daughter was born. And of course I didn't ease into it. That might have been a little bit easier, but what the hell. So I converted my garage. At this time I didn't have a real studio space, because after grad school I lost my studio space. So I drywalled my garage in half. And I just knew I was going to do elephants, because I was super pregnant, sitting on the couch watching these shows about elephants and how amazing it was, like the family unit, this idea of history and the matriarch society, and they remember their ancestors, they pay homage to the lost elephants, like they have graveyards. It really resonated with me being a new mom. So I said, as soon as I get in the studio, I'm going to draw elephants. And so my studio was about 8 feet by 12 feet. So I said, I don't know how big this is going to be, but I'm going big. So I just got this paper, and I put up 2 panels, and that's all I could fit, floor to ceiling, side to side. I could back up because there was a desk in there about 4 feet from it, and I was like, I'll figure out the perspective later. I'm just going to start drawing these elephants. So every day, before and after school, weekends, holidays, anytime my mom would come and watch my daughter, birthday parties, for the next 18 months I spent with this drawing. And what started to happen was that magic that I thought I lost came back. And so even though my days were ridiculously long, and this is when I discovered coffee. I'm gonna put that in there because there wasn't some kind of superhuman strength attached to this. I mean, it was kind of artificially, propelled me. I'm since off coffee, by the way. I went through the thing, but that kind of helped me. Those long hours, I was like, this is a miracle job. So we devised a plan, and we had a friend build this kind of wooden Frankenstein-looking crate, and I rolled it in a tube. My mom was there, my husband was there. We're like, what do we do with this thing? And I shoved it with foam, and then we got there, and I was like, I can't afford to hard ship it. So I UPS'd it, and my friend had a truck, and we dragged it out of the truck, and I said, this is really fragile. He's like, don't worry, we'll take care of it. And I said, but I can't pay that much. He's like, okay, well, it's just gonna go standard then, And I said, so we covered it in fragile stickers and we sent it off to Michigan. In my studio, imagine a very small, intimate space. Walking into this, it's floor to ceiling, and you're kind of, surrounded by this drawing, which is what I was really going for. And then it goes into this museum, and the space was even taller and larger and more open. And I was like, oh no, it's like a window. And I said, I didn't want a window, I wanted an environment. And luckily the curator, super supportive, Cindy at the time, I said, can I just do a little bit here and there to kind of break it out of this space? Because it's really bothering me, the context has changed so much. And she's like, okay, just a little bit, but we'll have to repaint the walls and you might have to be responsible. And I was like, sure. I was thinking good luck collecting, because I was like, whatever. So she said, yeah, you can draw and connect the panels. And it was a little bit closer, it was maybe to here. So I was just drawing little things to kind of connect the panels. It never crossed my mind that I would win. I was hoping from this to get some exposure and to get my feet back in a game that I knew I needed to be in. And everything kind of changed after that. It was like all the doors that I had been knocking on kind of all blew open at the exact same time. Which was, you sometimes wonder what it's like to live your dream and to go back and see it. And I see it, and I'm so grateful that happened. And I haven't really stopped since. So I now show all over, and I display in galleries and museums, and I wake up every day and say thank you. Because I've been on the other side. And I think that's basically how this was made and what happened. And then I'll just do a quick overview of what's in it. So here in the center panel, this would be me-ish. And this is a portrait of my daughter when she was very young. It's actually taken from a photo of her. And then it kind of just expands from there. And it's stories about loss, love, connection, difficult connections with families and friends, painful connections, and then there's lots of fun stuff. So much joy and silly stories and making fun of people and they don't know that they're in here. I worked out issues so that when I saw them next time, I would be like, you can be a jerk, it doesn't matter, because you're in there. And sometimes they comment on it and they don't even know it's about them, and that's the best part. And so I think it's basically just a story of all the fun, the scary, the sad, the disturbing. I use animals because I think they're universal. And they have a humanity to them that I wish we adhered to a little bit more. I do think it's important that I do mention it. At the time that I was working on this section here, my little nephew, who was 2 at the time, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. And he almost passed. He was really sick, really, really sick. And I don't know if anybody's familiar with type 1, but it's a devastating disease. It's constantly blood sugar monitored. Your pancreas literally fails and you can no longer process food anymore. It has nothing to do with weight or diet. It's just a terrible disease that can strike at any time. And seeing my sister and all of us what it was like to see this little baby have to get an injection to survive really does a trip on your mind. And so I added this lion here that's eating a popsicle, and that was a specific story about when he was first diagnosed, that I could no longer hand this 2-year-old this little popsicle without injecting him with insulin. And I was like, wow, this thing that symbolizes childhood and fun has a consequence attached to it. And that's really hard to do. And anybody that's battling a hidden illness or any chronic illness, it's like, wow, that is such a reminder of how difficult that is and what a challenge it is. And I put in this little service dog here with his name kind of in the hopes, and they now do have their own service dog. His name's Jedi. And it's not this little kind of wiener dog looking thing, it's a beautiful black lab. And my nephew is training him to go to school with him. So it's just an interesting story, and that's just one of the many, but that's probably one of the most powerful stories in this, where I was so grateful to be working on this drawing because it really saved me from or at least allowed me an outlet to work out some of those issues. In the next few months, so I'll be showing in Austin in September, and I'll be showing in Denver in November, and I kind of just rotate around different regions. That's about what materials I use, and again, after the talk, I have all the materials that I've used here, so you can see them all. And it's literally just pencils, and I have a B, a 2B, a 4B, and a 6B. And obviously the 6B is for the really dark, and then the B and the 2B is for my line work. So if you see lots of little lines, I've gone to the B and the 2B. When I first start this drawing, there are no sketches. There's only what's in here, and sometimes that's a big mess. I usually start with just a concept. So this was just elephants. And believe it or not, what it looks like now is not at all what I intended. I mean, not at all. Like, not even close to what I was first picturing in my head. It was literally just going to be elephants stuck together. The primates, they snuck in and I almost fought them. I was like, stop, I'm drawing elephants. Why are you here? Or whatever, but to keep kind of that thing, that inspiration that keeps you going, is to keep doing that. I found that when I stopped drawing, it was such an eye-opener for me. It changed the whole purpose for drawing, and it became a treat. I changed it from I just draw because that's my job, and to I'm privileged to be able to do this. It changed, a switch went off, it changed everything, my perspective on drawing. And I had to give up time with my family and my daughter, my most precious thing. I gave up time with her to do this, I better make it worthwhile. It means something now that I never had to give anything up before that. So I think that sacrifice to do something that you love and in balance with keeping your life going is what I could say. And if you do get to do what you love doing, be grateful for it. I really tell that whole thing, and I was like, I want to push this arrow through the apple, right? And I was holding the apple in one hand, and I stabbed the arrow through into my hand in the studio. What was I thinking? So I made a note up there, and it says something to the extent of never push an arrow through an apple. Something like that. It's literally a reminder, and I actually was going to erase it. I was like, that's ridiculous not leaving it there, but it's funny. I thought I'd take a photo and send it to my mom, Look what I did, Mom. And there's even a little figure with a kid saying, check it out, don't do that. It's not good. And then I decided to just leave it, kind of. I don't think anybody really noticed. That invites people to really, be a part of it. and to see how it's made and just, put it up there. And as far as how it's changed me, I think a lot comes from that idea I talk about a lot of gratitude. I love doing this, and I think you can tell that this isn't torture, this isn't something I clock into every day and I go, oh man, I gotta draw on the walls of a museum, this is just so hard. It's awesome, I'm drawing on the walls of a museum, people, and there is Andy Warhol right there. It's incredible. That is not something that's lost on me. That is something I think about. I mean, right there. And so I'm a happier person and I'm doing something that I love, and I want to share that with as many people as possible. And being a teacher, I want to show kids, I want to show people that you can do what you love doing and there's meaning behind it, and when you're doing what you love, it's not work anymore.
Well, we're just coming up on the 2 o'clock hour, so I'd like to give Adonna a big round of applause.